in social species, that wouldn't work.
Yeah, in fact, it's, as you pointed out before, it's quite the opposite in social species.
Yeah, things don't work quite the same. If the survival depends on the cohesion and the strength of a society, you really don't want an individual in that society running around causing insecurity and damage. And that's the difference. It's like going out and causing somebody else damage is not the same as me sitting at home doing something that's no one's business. I mean, I don't.
Right.
I just do not see the correlation there.
Well, and these guys got all wrapped around the axle over the impact that it would have on the gene pool, because if you remove somebody's genes from the gene pool by murdering them, then that's the same as if you're gay, because you've taken a reproducing individual out.
I guess what I don't get is, why don't they see it as the same as somebody who chooses not to have kids? Like, what is the difference why you don't breed?
Or even
like,
someone who is having non-procreative sex. If you ever have sex and use birth control.
But my point is, even if you said I'm going to be celibate.
Yeah.
It's the same result.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at that saying, why isn't there some hatred in our society of people who are celibate, or people who,
right.
why don't we have this sort of venom toward anybody that doesn't reproduce?
Right.
You would if that was really your problem.
Yeah. And one of the things I was going to point out on this is that our moral assessment of murder as bad is not based on how many reproducing individuals it removes from the gene pool. So, when we're deciding what to do about a murderer, we don't ask the question about, was this person fertile or not? We don't make any assessment of that. So, that's a complete non-issue. The other thing is, they seem to be saying that, murder's natural, therefore it's genetic, or there's some kind of underlying trait. And so there's a couple things I wanted to point out on that. Murder may be a natural behavior, meaning it does occur in nature. We do observe that. However, there's no evidence that it's genetic, for most people anyway, and in fact there's strong evidence that it isn't. At least it's not a selected for trait.
I think the type of murder that we're used to seeing probably is not genetically oriented. I mean, when you talk
Right.
about murder in nature, like even a chimpanzee group, you're probably talking about like some severe aggression.
Right.
Like a severely aggressive individual that just goes crazy, like gets into a fight and then kills another individual, which whether or not they intended to kill that other individual or whether they just intended to harm or threaten, you can't really tell. There's no way to ask the chimp, did you mean to kill this other chimp? But with human beings, the idea of like selectively stalking people, in the case of like a serial killer, the idea of murdering somebody for insurance money, I'm just thinking that that's probably not a natural trait that you're born with.
Right.
But now the idea of aggressing, like you get into a bar fight, you punch somebody, they go down, they hit their head on the corner of the bar, they die. Or even getting angry and shooting somebody and meaning to kill them. That might be the sort of aggressiveness that I guess there could be some sort of natural aggression that would make a person get really aggressive like that or more. But still, anger management works, folks. So there is help even if you have feel like it's just a natural tendency of yours to get angry. You really can learn to control that.
Well, and one of the things that I'd point out is that murder rates vary pretty significantly across different cultures and different nations. I mean, if you look at the murder rate in the U.S. and compare it to the murder rate in Canada, and if you look at the demographics of these two countries, they're so similar, but the murder rates are vastly different. So that tells you right there, there's not a strong genetic component if there is at all.
That's actually a really good thing, like what you were talking about in your profile, your human trait profile. That was one of the things that it mentioned, was that when you do a cross-cultural examination, you see the rates are pretty similar.
Yeah.
And when you have these things that are deviating really highly within cultures, I mean, you just don't see that many suicide bombers in Iowa. So it's like, when there's something, going on where it's really big in this culture, it's not really big in that culture, I agree. That's really, an argument for maybe this is culturally derived.
Yeah. And so we get down to the part where, why all this matters. Why does it matter when people commit this naturalistic fallacy? And bottom line is that not understanding this, it kind of underlies this confusion about why we can make these judgments about murder versus homosexuality. But let's take, for example, if we consider murder to be natural, that doesn't mean we have to think it's good. So we can acknowledge that maybe this is natural behavior because we actually do observe it in nature. We observe it in animal species sometimes.
Sure.
So, yeah, it's natural, but that doesn't mean we can call it good.
Or even that we have to put up with it.
Right.
Society can say it may be natural, but it's dangerous to society, and so we need to, curb this individual's capacity to hurt us, to hurt the rest of us. I mean, that's totally okay.
Yeah, and that's why we remove individuals who commit murder from our society, both as a deterrent for future acts and to remove a known harm from our society. We don't judge murder to be morally wrong because we think it's unnatural. And in fact, that would be the moralistic fallacy.
Right.
We judge murder to be wrong because of the impact that it has on its victims. The number of victims doesn't matter. So if you kill one person or you kill 100, if you've committed murder, then we judge that on the basis of the harm to the victims.
Right, and potential future harm.
Exactly.
And so, also the thing is, if you're judging natural as good and unnatural as bad, I think it was somebody, I can't remember who it was, that said, maybe you should have a hemlock smoothie.
Yeah.
Because there's certain things that are in nature that are not good.
Yeah.
And there's some things, and I'm sitting here with a phone line, 2 computers, a table, chairs, dressed in clothes, got my hair cut, and if I thought that anything unnatural was somehow evil or wrong, I'd be in a world of hurt right now as a total hypocrite.
Yeah.
Because I drove a car here on roads that are paved, and I live in a completely artificial environment. I'm surprised there's birds.
Yeah.
And
the people that did this were typing on a computer.
Right. We've got people calling us on a phone line.
Yeah.
And, so natural is not always synonymous with good, and artifice is not always synonymous with evil.
Yeah. So the naturalistic fallacy, when you apply it to human traits, brings its own problems here. Okay. If you claim that something is unnatural, there's this implied assumption that there's some external cause, and if there's an external cause, then you can fix it. And so in the case of homosexuality, this leads to some false assumptions, one of which was that gays have to recruit in order to fill our ranks or something.
In fact, you should look for the gay recruiting station in your area.
Yeah, because I need a new toaster oven.
You get points. Like green stamps or something.
Yeah. No, you didn't know that, right? If you turn a straight woman, you get a toaster oven.
Okay.
Okay.
No, I didn't.
Yeah, that was in the Ellen episode.
That's why you're putting pressure on me. You want that toaster?
Oh yeah, I need a toaster oven.
I thought you liked me.
I know. But actually, one guy that emailed us actually suggested that you could raise your children to be gay from birth. Okay. Now, the problem with that is you can't even raise your kids to be straight from birth. So
people have tried.
Yeah. Yeah,
and failed.
Yeah, believe me, my parents tried to raise me straight from birth. Didn't work. And the other assumption is that gays can be fixed, and this is where we get this reparative therapy thing, which it doesn't change a person's orientation at all. It just makes them miserable.
Oh, I'm sure. To me, that's abuse. I just think that's abusive to do that to a kid. First of all, to tell your child that there's something wrong with them when there's nothing really wrong, and then to put that kind of pressure on somebody to not be what they can't help they are, and tell them that it's bad and wrong, and God hates them, and you won't accept them. And I've always, I don't know, I can't understand the idea of that being your child, and the one thing that's wrong with them is that they're gay, and this is what's freaking you out. It's not like someone came and said he's, being arrested for serial murders.
I know. Yeah.
It blows my mind.
I know.
People would do that to their own child.
I even have some people ask me, well, what are you going to do if it turns out your kid is gay? I'm like, who cares?
Would you be able to accept him?
It's like, what?
You're like, no, I'm counting on it.
Yeah.
That's what we're trying to do is raise him gay.
We're raising him. Actually, his sexual orientation is fairly apparent.
Yeah, you were telling me about his little story. I don't know how much you want to share about your kid. That was pretty cute.
If I ask him, if he kisses girls at school, his typical response is a very smug, "Oh yes."